Good evening, everyone. This week's Parshat is Parshat Metzorah, but we will not be covering Parshat Metzorah. We'll be talking a little bit about Pesach. So I want to start with a story. And the story involves a man who was the Blusheva Rebbe. His name was Rabbi Yisrael Spira. And he survived the war, and he eventually reestablished him. He was the Blusheva Rebbe in Brooklyn, in Borough Park. And the Blusheva Rebbe lost his entire family and went through many different concentration camps and slave labor camps. And his survival through the camps is legendary. A lot of very beautiful and important stories that he was involved in. And the story goes that in one of the slaver camps that he was in, he developed, a civil relationship with the commandant of the camp. And before Pesach, he took a chance and he made a request. The request was permission to bake matzah for Pesach. And he asked for some flour, explaining that the prisoners agreed to have that flour that they used for the flour used for the matzahs, it would be subtracted from their daily bread rations. They're ready to do it, which means the small rations that they had, they were willing to take even less in order to be able to have the flour for the matzah. And miraculously, the commandant agreed. He agreed. A makeshift oven was built, and after a full day of back-breaking labor, a few Jews baked small portions of matzah. This went on for a couple of days until the commandant one day stormed in and in a fit of anger just destroyed the oven, and that was the end of the making of the matzahs. Okay, so he had a chance to make matzah over several days, but clearly there wasn't enough matzah for everyone. Wasn't enough. So the decision had to be made by Rabbi Spira, the Blusheva Rebbe, and all the other people, the leaders of the group, who's going to get the matzah. So they decided that all the adults would get matzah. All the adults. All the adults have the mitzvah, the commandment of eating matzah. They're adults. They're obligated. And therefore, they would get the matzah, and the children wouldn't, because they don't have the mitzvah yet. They're not obligated yet. Now, it's not clear to me how much matzah was going around here. Were all the adults were going to be able to do the mitzvah? Exactly how much they were going to portion of this matzah to adults, not clear to me. But this is this is a very well-known story. And that was a decision that they made. The leaders of the group, the Blusheva Rebbe and the other leaders, decided that it only made sense that the adults should be the ones to get the matzah because they have the mitzvah, they have the obligation, while the children don't. There was a woman present who had lost her husband and married sister, and she managed to hold on to her own two sons and two nephews, who she kept alive until after the war. And she protested this decision. And she said, the children are our future. They are the ones who will rebuild the Jewish nation, and they must receive a piece of matzah. That was her argument. They are the future of the Jewish people. They are the ones who are going to rebuild the Jewish people, and therefore they must receive a piece of matzah. And her argument won the day. Everybody decided, the Rebbe and all the others agreed with her, and all the children received a piece of matzah for the Seder. Now, it's just unbelievable to think about this woman, her bitachon, her trust, her belief that they would survive, or that would possibly survive. In her mind, the possibility, you don't give up. She had that trust in Hashem not to give up. And the children would be the ones that are going to rebuild. We know, unfortunately, many children didn't make it. But at the end of the day, it was the survivors and their children who rebuilt. And this woman saw the children as the ones who would really be the ones to continue the Jewish people. Tremendous under such circumstances to have those kind of hopes and not to give up, not to become despondent. And all the children got the matzah. Now we know that children are a big part of the Seder. So much of the Seder revolves around children. Children ask the questions, children are supposed to give the answers. The idea of the Torah itself lays out how our mitzvah of telling the story of Egypt is primarily a mitzvah upon a father to teach his son, to teach his children. If there are no children, you do it amongst the adults. The adults have the mitzvah too. But there is an obligation to make sure that the adult teaches the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim in Egypt to the children. That's why there's so much focus on the children. So much focus on the children because the children have to be imbued, have to be inspired with what Pesach teaches us. They have to be inspired because they are the ones that will carry on Yiddishkeit. They carry on the Torah. They carry on Judaism. So they have to be focused on, they have to be inspired and imbued with the energy and with the message of Pesach. And what is that message? How do we take that? What is that message of Pesach that we need to internalize? We need to teach our children. What was that message? What's that message that this woman understood so well that the children, they have to participate? You know, if you think about it, if the children would have not eaten the matzah, they would have seen matzah being eaten. But she understood that to make the impression on the children, they need to be actually involved. They've got to be involved in real time. They have to be eating matzah. And while they're eating matzah, they're being taught the messages of Pesach. What is that message? Or what is one of the main messages, at least? There can be many messages. But what's the main message? Or one of the main messages? And the answer is?
The same as escaping Metzorah escapes the war.
Now, when Hashem sent Moshe to speak to the Jewish people, so he expressed to them 4 expressions of redemption. Arba l'shayna shel geula. 4 expressions of redemption. V'hotzeisi eschem, v'yitzalti eschem, v'yitzalti v'ga'alti v'lakachti. Hashem says, I will take you out. Got to do it again. V'yitzalti, I will take you out. V'yitzalti, I will save you. V'ga'alti, I will redeem you. V'lakachti, and I will take you. And just to focus on that expression, I will take you. Hashem says, V'lakachti eschem li la'am, I will take you as a nation. V'yisi lachem l'elikim, and I will be a God for you. So, even while they were in the midst of the slavery, at its worst time, beginning of Parshat Ve'era, that is when things got especially difficult. And in that worst time, Moshe was to deliver them a message that Hashem says, I will take you out, and I will take you for me as a people, and I will be your God. Now, it actually says that the Jewish people didn't have the presence of mind to really listen. But that was the message that had to be given over to them. That even while they're in their slavery, even while they're in their misery, they're not just told, I'm going to take you out, but I'm going to take you out and make you my people. Even in the worst of times, Jewish people were being told that you're going to be redeemed and you're going to be my people. And I'm telling you now, even when things are so dark and so difficult, and it may be hard to believe that, but I'm going to take you out, you're going to be my people. And even though now you're going through so much and it seems impossible to think how you're going to survive, and other nations under these circumstances would never have been able to survive, nonetheless, you're going to survive and you're going to become my people. Even though right now it's so dark, I guarantee it. Hashem says, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And the lesson from that is for all generations, that no matter how dark things may be, just like in Mitzrayim when things were so bad, Hashem says, I will take you out and make you my people. That's the goal. The goal is to make you my people. That once they became his people, when Hashem took them out of Mitzrayim, that would be their guarantee that no matter how bad things will be, they will come out. They will be redeemed. The Jewish people will come out and be redeemed. Just like in the darkest of time in Egypt, this is what happened. They were taken out from their darkness and made Hashem's people. So that process continues. Remember that process. That effect continues. The same way the first time Hashem says, I take you out to make you my people. From now on, once you're my people, I will continue to take you out. And that's a lesson that we have to teach our children. We have to internalize it ourselves. That as we say in the middle of Seder, we pick up a cup and we say, V'hisha amda la v'yiseinu v'lanu. It stood for our, V'hisha amda la v'yiseinu v'lanu. It stood, Hashem's promise has stood for us, for our forefathers and for us. Because it's not only one that wants to come to destroy us. Every single generation they get up to destroy us. And Hashem saves us from their hands. This is the message of Seder night. It's a message that we need, and it's a message that especially our children. That our children, who in many ways we might think, maybe we should protect them. Why should we expose them to these kinds of things? No. Again, there's only so much to really understand of it. But what we teach them and internalize them, that no matter what's going to happen to the Jewish people, Hashem is going to take care of us. Hashem never abandons us. And even when things are going bad and we don't understand what's happening, Hashem is there with us, as was in Egypt, as Hashem showed us when he took us out of Mitzrayim, that even while we were slaves, we still remained a people. We were able to come out as a people and become his people. And that continues for all generations. That's something our children need to hear. Our youth need to hear. Young adults need to hear. Everybody needs to hear it. Everybody needs to hear that. And this woman understood that those children need to eat matzah, need to participate, need to feel Pesach, and then the messages and the lessons being taught to them, that they understood. Hashem took us out then. Hashem will take us out again. Hashem took us out then. He can redeem us now. He will redeem the Jewish people. At the end, we don't know who Hashem decides will come out or not come out. But at the end of the day, we never give up hope on who we are as a people. We don't give up hope as individuals either. But as a nation, we have a guarantee that we're going to survive. And we're going to not only survive, but thrive. There'll be good times, there'll be bad times, but Hashem is always with us. That is the lesson of the Exodus from Egypt. And that's the lesson we have to imbue in our children and of course, internalize it for ourselves, because we as a people, we've gone through so much, we're going through so much now, and we have to make sure that Yetzias Mitzrayim Pesach energizes us and gives us the hope that and the trust in Hashem, that Hashem has not abandoned us, he's watching us, and he's going to redeem us. Now, and this is all part of what it means freedom. Our freedom that we celebrate on Pesach, what we're celebrating, the freedom that we're celebrating for Pesach, is the fact that, again, we're taken out of Egypt, and now we became Hashem's people, and we were elevated to become Hashem's people. While being slaves in Egypt, we couldn't become the nation of God. We couldn't become his chosen people. We couldn't become his children in the fullest in its fullest sense. And now that we became free, we now became free from the shackles of Egypt and from the bondage to the evil that Egypt represented. And we were elevated to become the nation of Hashem. And I think this can be brought out, and a point can be made about this in an interesting way. There is a mashal, a parable, that I heard in the name of Rav Nachman of Breslov. And the parable goes like this. Pesach was approaching, and there was a poor Jewish man. He was a person who went around and collected charity. And he had a friend who was also poor, but he wasn't Jewish. So he said to his friend, Pesach is coming. And, Pesach, people make sure that everybody has what to eat. They invite you to the Seder. They give you a nice meal. You know what? Tell everybody you're Jewish. Tell everybody you're Jewish, and you'll be able to have it to also celebrate.
chance to eat.
You have a chance to eat. He said, that's a good idea. And he was really looking forward to a good meal that a Jewish friend told him about. He told him about the knedlach, the matzah balls. He told him about, the brisket. He told him about the tzimis. He told him about all the stuff. So he's very excited. All right. So the Jewish man and his Jewish friend, they come to shul. Somebody says, "Do you need a place for the Seder?" Yes. Invites them in. Okay. He sits down at the table. What's the first thing that they do? They drink a cup of wine. And he says to himself, oy vey, wine on an empty stomach? Well, listen, what is he going to do? He had no choice. And he drank. All right, he had a stomach ache, got a little bit dizzy, but, he still had what to look forward to. And then they start talking and reading and talking, and like he's going out of his mind. Like, what are we going to eat? Okay, finally they stop talking. Great. What do they bring him? Another cup of wine. All right. So he drank it down as hard as it was. And then his friend, said to him, okay, now the meal's going to begin. And what do they give him? What do they hand him? Matzah. Hard, core-barred matzah. We know how to appreciate matzah. But somebody who doesn't know how to deal with matzah and was waiting for something bigger, he couldn't believe it. He bit into it. It had no taste. It had no nothing. Okay. What do they give him next? Burning horseradish. And he's got to eat it plain. He says, that's it. I'm out of here. I had enough. End the parable. End the story. Now, I don't know exactly when I first heard this parable if Reb Nachman gave a lesson from it. But the lesson that I took from it is the following. And that is that when we celebrate freedom from Egypt, right? It's not just, it's not Emancipation Day. It's not Freedom Day that we kind of celebrate by just celebrating. Because the point of the exodus from Egypt was that we became Hashem's nation. And Hashem's nation means the nation will receive the Torah, the nation that would dedicate themselves to the service of Hashem, and not dedicate themselves to self-gratification, but to serving Hashem. So at the beginning of the Seder, we don't just eat. We don't just, let's eat first and then we'll talk about it. No. We right away, we drink wine. The drinking wine symbolizes the redemption. It's part of the way that we begin praising and thanking Hashem for it, because we recite that, we make Kiddush, we recite the Haggadah over the second cup of wine. The first thing that we do is tell the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim, because we're stressing that, because the point is not the meal. The point of celebrating freedom isn't to party. The point of celebrating Yetzias Mitzrayim is to appreciate we became Hashem's people. Now, at the same time, as human beings, if we want to rejoice and appreciate, we need to physically rejoice too. But that's not the main thing. The main thing is to rejoice and appreciate how we became Hashem's people. And therefore, the first thing we do at the Seder is not eat. The first thing we say at the Seder is we start talking about the Exodus from Egypt. We go through the story. We appreciate what Hashem did in the sense of our gratitude to Hashem. We gain and remind ourselves about how Hashem runs the world and all the other principles of faith that came out from Yetzias Mitzrayim. And then, after we've brought ourselves to the point where we see ourselves as if, at the end of the Maggid section says, a person has to see themselves as if they left Egypt and appreciate for themselves what leaving in Egypt did for them, for each individual, what it does. It makes us all, it elevated us all to become Hashem's nation. Every Pesach energizes us to be Hashem's unique nation. Then, when we come to that point that we appreciate as if and feel as if we have left Egypt, okay, then we'll celebrate. Then we'll also have some physical celebration. But the point of the parable is that the person who didn't understand the main meaning, you're free. Let's celebrate. Let's eat. Let's celebrate. And by the Jew, it's not let's just celebrate. It's let's first appreciate what it is that Pesach is about. We became Hashem's people. And we do that by telling the story of this exodus from Egypt. And then we'll celebrate. You know, a couple of years ago, it was Erev Pesach. And I had to run to Stop and Shop to get something. And I saw someone, Jewish man. And, we know each other well. And, I said, how's Pesach coming? How are things going? And he said, I'm really ahead of things. I'm really ahead of the situation. I made my brisket a couple of days ago, and my chicken soup is already ready for Pesach.
Chicken soup is
ready for Pesach. That's the whole thing. The whole thing is my brisket and my chicken soup. So I'm ready. I'm ready. Okay, look, this is how some people only know this is as much as they know. I was ready to say to him, buddy, that's how you're ready for Pesach. But we know there's a lot more to it. A lot more to it. A lot more that starts before the brisket and the chicken soup that we make. There's a lot going on before that. And there's a lot that's going to go on the meal that's much more important than the chicken and the brisket and the chicken soup. And that's because we have to understand that when we internalize the message that Hashem gave us the first Pesach, we internalize it every Pesach, that Hashem took us out to be His people. And because we are His nation, His children, the same way He said He's taking us out to be His children, once we made us His children, He'll take us out again and again, whenever we need. And He never abandons us. And that our true celebration of what it means to become Hashem's people is the fact that now we are dedicated to Hashem. We live by His Torah. We're not people who are just looking to live physically gratifying lives. But we're looking to make the connection, be close to Hashem, which is what He gave us opportunity when He took us out of Mitzrayim. That is our true celebration of Pesach. And that's what we have to imbue our children with, and of course, imbue ourselves, internalize the message for ourselves. Wishing everybody a Chag Kosher v'Sameach, very happy and kosher Pesach.